Hi everybody, I'm Mark Andrews, and welcome to my Lightbox storyboarding lecture. So what I thought I'd do is sit down and actually storyboard out a scene from start to finish, between 10 and 20 panels, and while I'm drawing, talk to you about the process that I'm doing and what's going on in my head and why I'm choosing shots and getting into all the nitty-gritty stuff about storyboarding. So with that, why don't we dive in and do some storyboards. All right, you guys ready to do some storyboarding? Let's go. I'm in this little screen over here now. So let's look at the big screen here. So what I have is I thought I'd start from a place where I'm not just doing something from scratch. I wanted to start it from an image. So here's our base image, and it's action-packed, or it has a lot of tension going into it. So one of the things I noticed right there is that that's possibly a way out. So that could be a goal for my scene. The helmet and insignia, the armband all go to tell me kind of who these guys are. They're the bad guys. They're Nazis. It's probably World War II. There's a patch right here on his coat that's an American flag, which makes me think he's behind enemy lines. He's some kind of, he's not Indiana Jones stuck with the Nazis. No, he's an actual trooper back there who's probably on a secret mission and got caught and is trying to escape. The German M42 or 44, whichever it was, that tells me when we are. Another interesting thing is that there's water on the floor. That's an element that I could use in the storytelling, and I'm totally going to use that. You guys will see how when I start boarding and finding a place to use that reflection in the water for him to see the guy or the guy to see him. There's a light source coming from here. I don't know if that light source was just so that we could see him so he's not in the shadows, or there's a torch burning over here too. So he may have to cast a shadow. That may give him away. I'll have to think about that. The architecture and the size of the room, it's old, it's Gothic, so we have this underground kind of catacomb things or storage facility or a grotto. So definitely the bad guys. I know what I have to get through. I'm on the good guy side because we're kind of in his POV. We're with him. We're closest to him. We're looking at what he's looking at. So what do we do first? Let us first make it widescreen. But as I did this and spread it out, bad paint job. Don't worry about it. I was missing something from the original, the closeness that we were to him in the original arrangement. So I basically pushed in from my wide shot. It gives me a little bit more to the left and right. I centered it just off axis, and that's something I'm going to talk about a lot. If I divide the screen in half, I position him compositionally right in the middle because our eye tends to go to the middle the best, and his head is pretty much right in the middle if I divide it horizontally too. So I know what my story is. I'm going to do for my first panel. So what I'm thinking about right now, since I know he's hiding behind the column, I'm close enough to see his face looking at the guy. I don't need a close-up of him looking at the guy. And the stormtroopers here, Nazi stormtroopers, they don't know exactly where he is, or they'd be frying him behind that column right now. What I may want to do is what I'm thinking about right now is I'm going to jump on the other side of that Nazi commando. So I am picking this size at random first. It's just to get me going. So next thing I want to do is I want to figure out where the perspective is in this shot. Know your perspective. That's the biggest thing I could say to learning how to draw or improving your drawings, because it allows you to turn the environment, turn the scene so you can think about other shots, so you're not just getting stuck in a few shots that you know how to draw. That's not going to help anybody out. And right now I'm still exploring. I'm exploring how far back this goes. I want to feel that it goes back pretty far so I can have a lot of fun in here, basically playing hide and seek between these columns. And right now I'm thinking, okay, when I started this, this is essentially the middle. This is essentially the middle. So I got him over here on the right-hand side of the screen. Pretty much he's riding the center line. This is just the beginning sketch. I'm gonna knock this background back a little bit. We talk about size in boarding all the time. It's what you talk about if you do live action. What size do you want the character in the lens? And that's gonna give you a good idea of what camera lens you should be using. So he's flamethrowing, bah! And now I could see there's more flame that's going into the space. So I've got depth. So now I'm building the drawing and putting in details. Details helps with the plane of the floor. It helps with telling you what it's made out of. And these are all cues. You don't have to go super detailed. So in perspective, once I set one thing down, I can use it as a measurement to get where it is on the other side of the frame. So that's a way, a nice trick to keeping your perspective consistent. There it is, a little bit more tied down. That's my second shot. I'm going from this to this. So screen direction. Let's talk about that just for a little bit. We established screen direction with this guy being on the left, okay? And this guy's being center, but he's pointing kind of to the right. Now, watch what happens. I've crossed the line. This guy should be, well, he's still on the right side of the screen, and I know my other dude is going to be back over here. But essentially, I crossed the line. So I've got him here, but I don't want him looking there yet. He's moving into the space. So I can break the line. I know where everybody is. I know who everybody is. He doesn't know exactly where the dude is. So I don't have to line those things up yet. Next shot, let's get into that. What is it going to be? Well, how far do I want to build this tension? I could go cut back and forth between this and this and this and this and versions of this forever. But I want to get into some action. So when is this guy going to spring out with his gun? Now that I'm looking at it and thinking about it, and a lot of things happen in my head as I'm drawing. I'm feeling the scene out. So now he's pointing at our guy, and I may even, now that he's done that, I may even swing the camera a little bit and open it up in anticipation, make this more of a moving camera with a slight adjust over there to the right to set up. He's gonna fry that. I do a lot of drawing corrections as I go. I'm gonna move that column over here now just to open it up, because I want to see the more depth back here. That's a column here. That's going to be a column here. Maybe there's a wall way back here. And then he turns to fry this thing. So we have him. He moves over here. Boom. And he fires the weapon. Now, we knew that guy was behind there. So we're going to have to see what happened to him. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a replay of this one, kind of, but a little bit more close up. And actually, now that I'm drawing it, I know I got to move it over. I don't want to see as much of the column. And now as I moved it over, I want to make this guy bigger. Since he's already drawn, that's easy to do. And I'm going to put him over here on his space, so he has plenty of room. So if the so that's not going to be the horizon line anymore now that I've done this, because there's going to be a dude standing back here. So I'm going to do this trick. It's called hanging on the line. So now this guy is looking. And we know that he's the second dude with a flamethrower. So he's standing back here. Now I'm just drawing him. I'm not interested in where he's going to be placed yet on the horizon line. I'm going to find out what looks right. So this guy back here. Okay, so let's see where he is on the horizon line. Well, wherever the camera is, there's going to be a part on each of these guys' bodies that is going to fall on the horizon line at the same time. So it's not their heads, right? It's not their shoulders. Is it their arms? Oh, there's the horizon line. It's right there at their elbows, just above the waist. You can see their waist is different. But if I start lining up these heads, they all start pointing to, my vanishing point is here. I really don't care about the vanishing point. I want to know where the horizon line is. That's the most important part, is the horizon line. So that's my shot. Now I'm thinking that our guy is going to walk across to the other side to reveal a burnt corpse of our U.S. soldier doing his stuff. No, it's not going to be a burnt corpse. But that's what we're thinking it's going to be. And that's when my guy pops out. I just had an idea of what to do, which is going to interrupt the shot. There we go. So now I could step through. Boom, boom, boom. So we start there. We go here behind the guys. He moves into the room and he fries that column. We're going, holy shit. And so I just realized something over here. Cutting on the action. So we got the fire coming right at the camera lens. So when I cut from my previous shot, I see he's cooking this column on this shot. I want even more room so it's not that jump cut on the other side. That's better. Boom. And then he could stop flaming and he could start walking over as the camera dollies with him across to get the other side. Now, before I get to this other side, I want to cut to this guy's POV, again, just to increase that tension of what are we going to find on the other side, which is going to be from the guy's POV. Now, it could be exactly what he sees, POV, which is going to be from the guy's POV. Now, it could be exactly what he sees, POV. So I'm just starting to, just laying it out, just laying out my shot. So a lot of times what I'll do to break down a shot is I'll draw the front and the first image and then the end image of the camera move and then figure out what that middle is. So as he's coming around, I want to finish this move. I want to settle. And so he's looking at this column. He's come around this column. And there's fire, little things of fire still holding on. But nobody's there. Where the hell is he? Let's look at it again. I always go back, get the whole thing going. Boom, boom. Comes in, he's flamethrowing that. Flamethrower, we cut on the action, we cross. Holy shit, there's not a guy there. We roll around it, doesn't seem to be anybody, but the last bit, huh? And he's not there. Where is he? Well, I can keep this going. I can pop him out right here with his machine gun, and take that guy out and get to some shots, right? And he's all silhouetted, which would be cool. And I think that's what I'm gonna do. But I don't want to give it away that fast. I still want to create this tension because this is a nice moment to be in. If I create the tension now and then I want to change it later and cut some of it out, then I can go back and call and knock out boards. But I want to stay in these moments that I find as long as I can to feel them out. So what's the next shot? I think the next shot is going to be something like this. But this, looking up at him, not so good. So it's something like this, but maybe not this. So maybe I want to be wider. Maybe I want to be over the guy just a little bit. I'm drawing all over the place. That's okay because I'm finding it. I'm not concerned with how the drawing looks yet. No way. I'm still building it. This will get me a ground plane. And I can see the other side of this column, revealing our hero is not there. So now that I got that kind of working, now I can go back and I can correct. The guy's frying, comes around, he walks around. We cut in the middle of the shot to his POV walking around, which I'm going to revisit this. He comes back around, he's all, ha-ha! The guy's frying, comes around, he walks around. We cut in the middle of the shot to his POV walking around, which I'm going to revisit this. He comes back around, he's all, ha-ha! Because I left this POV open with nobody in it. As I was going through it, I want to feel the guy in there a little bit. And since I drew him here, that's kind of the same perspective, I'm just going to cut him out. So this is when I like to get into doing a little tone, just to make him give the idea that he's in the foreground, he's not catching all the light. I'm even going to Gaussian blur it a little bit so that we know it's a dirty over, what they call dirty over the shoulder shot. So starting, next shot, this is still a one shot, third cut, third shot. He stops, he starts to move, moving cameras, right? Because I'm with him. I'm going to see at the same time he is. That's why I want to move the camera. Now I go to his POV, with him in the POV, coming around the thing. There's nobody there. As we catch back up with him, finishing that shot, that coverage from the last time, I'm thinking in live action terms, and there's nobody there. Now we're back away from it. It's like, where is this guy? Where is our hero? And now we got to think about that next shot. I did some changing through the use of movie magic, editing magic. So we start here, we cut over the guy's shoulder, and I thought coming in over the nozzle of the flamethrower as the guy starts walking into the shot, holding this down. So he gains away from us and we adjust up as he turns and sets his sight on this other column, and he torches that. We cut to the reverse as he's blowing fire into our faces and stops. He starts to move around the column and we start moving with him. And then we cut, instead of the high over his shoulders, I want to stay on the weapon, the flamethrower, as it's coming around, because that's where the fire is going to come out and melt anybody he sees. So as we're rolling around this, with cameras gaining away from him a little bit, we come back into the shot that we left, the moving shot, as he comes around the column, revealing that there's nobody there. And then we adjust up and catch him. We see that other guy in the back, and now he turns to look like, where could he be? And now we can go into the next shot. So I've had the tension build. We know he was behind a column. We know the guy was flamethrowering, and we think he got him, but he's moved. So now the audience is going, well, where the heck did he go? And this guy doesn't know where he is, but he knows that the guy is down here somewhere. So where the heck did he go? That's what we have to address next. Just thinking about this story logic of actually being in this space and seeing this scene in my head and trying to get it down on paper. I'm exploring a bunch of different shots and ideas in my head without having to draw them. So if we've left this guy kind of looking, we see the guy in the back. I want to go to that guy's POV, the guy who's looking. And I'm just starting to lay in. I'm just exploring the space. Sometimes I'll do an actual kind of map. But to me, you know, the map is fine kind of logistically where things place, but it doesn't put me in the environment. And a lot of these just become, as I'm drawing, I'm thinking in my head about this space. And is there another reveal? How is he going to pop out? Our hero going to pop out from behind a column? I still got this water. And it would be, of course, all dark and shadowy. So this may be, let's try this. He's looking around. We may be over his helmet here. See, now here's an interesting dilemma. Screen direction. So this guy is on the left and he's looking left. So if I cut to my new shot, he's no longer looking left. He's on the left, but now he's looking right. So they would say that that pops because I'm looking at something. It's like, where is he looking? He's looking the opposite direction that he was in the last shot. But if I put him back, if I put this guy back over here, zoink, right? Now he's looking the direction he's supposed to be looking, right? But he's no longer on the left-hand side of the screen. He's on the right. So what do you do? Well, to me, there's no problem. We understand who he is because we're cutting over the guy's shoulder. He's not anybody different. You can handle this in a move so the camera can adjust off of this shot, and we can slide the whole shot over like this and then cut, and we'd be fine opening it up. And that's a technique. I'm okay with this, right? We can even do this. He's not in the shot to begin with, so it's a POV, no screen direction. The guy was facing to the left, so he better enter on the left. And so enter he does, right? Or the camera is doing the same thing. It's rolling around until we get behind this guy. And maybe that's what I'll do. So it's like his eye is scanning. So I think I'm going to do that. Some people ask me all the time, do you thumbnail? And I don't thumbnail. For me, I find I was not getting the actual room to draw, right? On a little thumbnail, you have a horizon line, you draw your character, and it's about just kind of things in the frame and their position, but it wasn't letting me explore or figuring out the details of the actual environment. And storyboarding is all about not just the character and their expression, it's about the shot. It's about the storytelling image and what is this character doing in the environment? How can that environment help tell the story of what the character is going through? I find when I was thumbnailing, when I was a younger storyboard artist, I was doing everything, I was doing it twice. And I just want to do my thinking once. So I draw at size. If I'm doing things multiple times, then I'm spending more time on this process than actually working the scene and thinking about it and being able to throw out whatever I did and bring it back. So people go, well, would you not have thrown it out if you had worked it out in thumbnails? I'm all, no, because thumbnails, again, are not this drawing. This is a great Brad Bird trick. People at the movie theater, their heads are this big as they're sitting watching the movie. You have to have context be working in context, I find is best. And with thumbnails, you're not working in context. So he comes around, he looks back into the grotto, we follow his thing as he kind of comes in, we find him, duplicate this later, because I want to get him on the other side for a specific reason. Always I'm bringing back this flamethrower because that's the menace, right? So I see that he has it and he's ready to use it. So he looks POV, going where we find him. He's walking into the room, and next shot. Remember that water on the cobblestones? And now that I've drawn that, I'm going, oh, well, that's a cool idea. Why don't I give it another pose? And this is the kind of thing where a pose, you're going to have to give a couple because this action is very specific. So yeah, so he's walking into the grotto looking for more guys. We're looking for the guys. That's where this puddles splash. As the ripples settle, we see the guy come out. Cut. What you're seeing me do is I started at this size, I'm shrinking that size, I'm going down to another size. So I'm finding the size. I already know the placement in the frame that I want to do. But I'm finding the size that my character should be at. So he's going to be moving out away from this shot, revealing this column. And our guy. So he's going to come out, rolling out from behind this guy. Now I'm thinking I'm going to adjust down to him, the camera, because he's a new subject. So the camera is shifting focus just by doing this move to find this guy. Our hero, as one of our villains, keeps moving out of the shot, totally unaware. So rewind my film, splash, comes out, boom, boom, boom. So what's going to happen next? Well, he's got the drop on him. So let's do this real quick. Let's be over our hero's shoulder. I'm just playing. I haven't decided yet. I'm acting it out. I do this a lot. I feel out the pose. If I can feel it, not only helps me draw, but it helps me just feel that sense of the action. Now I can bring my hero in, so I know where they're going to line up. They're going to line up just under the butt, right? Let me show you. So my perspective is about here where this guy's ass is. So everybody being the same size, my hero's ass is going to be on here, which means I'm going to get the gun here in this line, which is cool. Maybe I'll want it up a little bit. And I reverse figure out a drawing all the time. Where's the element that I'm actually looking at versus where my person's going to be. So a lot of this, I'll say it a billion times, it's finding it. It's turning your drawings. It's working it out. And being in this moment. You've got the drop, you're the hero and you've got the drop, and you know as soon as you pull this trigger, you've got that other guy back there who's going to come running. So you're going to have to get him too, which is why he moved his position to sucker this other guy in, to separate them. So he comes out, we go back to him. I'm going to have a second pose in here. There he is. So he starts to turn. I think there should be some movement on my other guy here. Which there can be, now that I have him. So he comes out, so he's still moving. And then, what we've all been waiting for, the resolution of this scene. I like to draw cylinders and boxes. Most everybody can draw a box in perspective, cylinders for heads. I found a new trick where you put your hands on the subject, then you work it back to the shoulders. That's always a good way. But then I could really work the perspective of some of these harder shots. So this is a fun shot that I am enjoying the challenge, the hard drawing of getting the perspective just right, to being underneath this guy as he's shooting over the camera with shells coming out. Ba, 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 ba. So let's go back just to see where we started. There he is, flamethrower. As he pushes in the frame, we adjust. As he flames the one we think our guy's behind. He moves behind it. As we roll around in his semi-POV, nobody's there. Huh, where did he go? His POV, the camera pans and we pick him up as he's entering the frame, looking around still. The water spush reveals to the audience where our guy went behind another column. As the Nazi with the flamethrower moves in, we just now see him come around the column. It's just before he turns. And now, you know what we got to see next. No, it feels too far away from me. I'm feeling it's going to be a little bit more personal. Maybe a version of this. Yeah, now that I see it, I can adjust it. Now, that other bad guy who was guarding the stairs, I got to go back to him. So how am I going to go back to him? Right? So that it's clear think the best way to look at this is go back to that original shot. So he's here in this aspect. So I want to see those stairs. I want to see the lighting change on him so I know he's outside and he's got to move into the building. And a trick I do is I have my background on one layer and I'll get my character on another layer in case I need to shift it, make it bigger, whatever I need to do. Now here's the other aspect. I don't want to do a turn like that. That's a waste of drawing. That's a pose I don't need. I don't need the A and B to that. The one drawing with my shoulder there and the head twisted tells me he's heard it. So there's a shot. Now, is he bigger? Is he further over here? Lower down in the frame? I don't know, but because he's on the other layer, I can do that. And maybe this whole shot is reduced. See what that feels like. So with the head turn, this is going to be fast action. So I just on the shot long enough for him to turn his head. Then I got to go to my other dude because he's expecting this guy. So he can have a head turn as well. He's going to move, because I would. The guy turns and looks, what the hell was that? It's an interesting cut. The tone would totally change it. Let me show you. So, that works for me. Bunk, 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 bunk. What? Out. So it clears a frame. Now we get to move on to our next shots. Maybe I want to open this up more. Yes, because I want the perspective to point out my guy. So I'm going to put my guy in first. So he's going to pop out from behind here, but I don't need that. I also don't need him running in. I know that they've merged because I'm going from this shot where he runs out to a wide shot where he's coming in, and this guy's already coming in. Now that I see this guy here, I don't need, I like him bigger. And he could be in the shot more, coming right up to the center line here, but not crossing it. Right? So now I can compose my dude in his own frame. And asymmetric is way more interesting than symmetric. So this is in the middle. He's right in the middle of his box, right? And on the same shoulder. I'm liking that there's a little bit of overlap that could be happening here. So I'm going to copy and paste this guy. So I can move him around as an element. I'll move the background around as an element too. So that feels good. Yeah, he's in the middle of his and he's in the middle of his. He takes off. He runs into the shot. The guy sees him. He's going to go ahead and pull the trigger on that flamethrower. Oh, what the? We're around right here. Right. Reverse. See what our good guy is doing. So he's got a flamethrower coming at him like this. That guy's gonna dive out of the way. Ho! All right, so now that I got him drawn, I can place him in my shot. And I see he's there. I want him down. I want the shot a little bit bigger. Compress it from the side here. Yep. Pitch it and roll it. Diving out of the way. There he goes. We were here. He had shot this guy. That guy hears it. He knows that guy has heard it. He runs. And then he runs out here. And then he dives out of the way of the flamethrower. I thought that it needed to be a little bit more energetic. I could accentuate this action with some moves. So I added a couple boards where I kept behind him as he bursts out into the hallway. So the camera's dollying with him. And then I matched that dolly the other way as the Nazi flamethrowers him. Cut to the shot that we already have him diving through the air. And then I'm on the other side of the pillars as he comes at camera, and I adjust down as he comes at cameras to roll through the flame. And now I can get into my next shot. This is the first take of a sequence or a moment. So if I'm doing my job, I want the director to see as much context as possible. That's why the backgrounds are as important as the character and the acting up front. Dies from the fire. Whoa, through the lens. Sprays. He dies from the fire. Oh, rolls through the lens. This guy hoses. A lot of fire. And where's our guy? Well, let's reveal where he is. So a lot of the times, find the right size. What you saw me do was draw smaller, way smaller than I think I need. And then once I have it, now I can look at my pull it into a frame and look and see what size I need. So what I did there was I positioned him in a place that I like. His head's falling right on that middle line. Open this space to the left to see the gun flash going off as he's going to dive behind or roll out of this thing. I may even turn this into a little bit of a move, but this is my final frame. Still to find the size, I pin his head there, and I shrink, and then I'm going to have to adjust. So I think that size is good. I find a lot of storyboard artists draw way too close, and that's mostly because they're not drawing at size. So if you can draw in that full frame, then you won't feel that need, because we got to draw big so we can see all the detail, but you won't have that need to do that. And now you can really compose shots using the entire space of the frame, and that's really important. I'm working backwards. I got my end angle, and so now I'm working backwards to work into this end shot. So I'm going to transition from these flames to flames going across my next shot, which will die away in this shot. I'm also changing the height of the camera. You guys will see him going from being a little out at his waist, where perspective ultimately lands on this, because there's a wall back there. That's where this is where the wall, it's the ceiling, but the actual perspective is about at his hips. So flames die out. So we have a nice cross cut of flames dying out. So that makes him, merges him as part of that other shot. We know those flames whipped at camera, they're going past us and finish as he runs towards the guy to the left, still making his left-hand progress. So this, I'm seeing, because he's running and we want to pull him a little bit, I may pull back on this just a hair to just get a sense of that motion. He's leaving this column behind. Now he's running. Flames come out, he comes out from behind. Column, whoosh. Dives for the ground. Yes, definitely want to pull this back. Or shrink him, actually. The camera adjusts down, anticipating where he's going. Getting the right pose is essential in the movement. So he's going to be down lower. your eye is going to fill in the other stuff. That's going to go real shallow here. So I'm coming online, in line as this perspective goes whoosh, like that. I'm about here. So he's coming up, he's fired. Ah, is that the end of the sequence? I want to see him back here. All right. Let's see. Takes off, runs, up, fires out, got flamethrowers, he dives out wide, but goes the camera. Guy's hosing the whole thing. Running out still. Not in our next shot. So now I have the guy, but I'm not necessarily, in my perspective, I'm not necessarily happy with the size or the placement yet. So again, just start drawing and move it around and see what you have. This is the cool thing about doing this semi-live is you get to see the thinking process instead of just seeing some finished boards and talking through what I do. You can see me kind of stop and pause and think about it, which I think is valuable because it's probably a lot like how everybody works. There is a lot of thinking that goes into this, a lot of reacting, and that's what I'm doing. I'm the first audience, and so as I'm drawing and figuring out the shots and seeing it in my head and processing, I'm the audience. So since we're low, I don't want that headroom touching the top. And I want this. We're low, so we're going to see a little bit more ceiling. So here, you can see the shots hitting. Ping. Where he keeps that canister. Ricochets off his helmet. He runs, flames goes by, he dives. King. Oh, so he's gonna go before that. He runs, dives. Blow up in the wide. So, going over it, I want this. I actually want to go a little closer first. Ping, ping, ping. Make this a even bigger explosion. Going to be slightly loose with the background, just as long as there's enough information to let everybody know where we are. Flames. Runs, shoots, maybe big. Now let's check in with our guy. Because he can have a reaction. Be the same type of setup. I'm going to be a little closer to him. Again, I do the same thing on my characters that I do with the back.
Yeah, they're all asking me questions.
In the drawing to understand what I'm looking at. That also saves time in drawing. So let's check in with our hero after the explosion goes up.
What do I use?
Cutting to him in the same as
iPad. I use
clear.
huh?
We can see that he braced for the explosion. He can look up. And then we cut to just an open frame looking down the hallway as he enters quick, looking at what he'd done. He turns and looks off camera the direction he's going to go, and as he exits, then we tip down and we reveal the result of that big blast. And that allowed me to economically get him up off the ground and move him through the space without having to see all of that action. So that's one way that you can use economy to your benefit. Well, now that we've killed off two of the guys that we saw from our starting image, is pretty much done. So do I stay here on this reaction, or could I move on? So I may want to get out of here as efficiently and economically as possible. So once he clears frame, we boom down or tilt down, we find the remnants of the carnage. I can just cut to the stairs going up, because I know there were stairs kind of going up. I felt that light and where those bad guys were before. So we want to see him headed up there. I want to cut to a reversal. We see the courtyard where he's come from, and he slowly pulls into position over this little ledge here. And then getting into his POV attaches us to the character. So we're revealing what he's going to see at the exact same time he sees it. And that makes the audience participatory and not just watching something from afar. There's objective and subjective shots that I talked about earlier. And we are definitely subjective here because we are in his point of view. So we come up and we reveal the courtyard is full of half tracks and a bunch of other bad guys. And then we cut back around to his reaction to that. And we want a close up of that reaction so we can get a sense of what he's feeling. And there's a nice progression here in the last minute from being far away, moving away from us, to moving towards us, to then being right with him as he sees it. And that's something I look for all the time, is the progression of the idea. As you start, you can start farther away from the character and get closer to him. You can start closer to the character and get further away. You could start more ambiguous and then become clear with where we are and what's going on. You can be still and then get more shaking. So let's run all the way through it. So we start with our original shot, doctored to fit the widescreen. So we see the bad guys firing flamethrowers, go over the nozzle of the flamethrowers, he hoses down there, then he shifts over the camera, adjusts to open up the other side as he flames the column, cut on the action. He starts walking and we dolly with him. Then we're back over him, dollying too, as we're rounding the corner and seeing that there's nobody back there. Reveal there's nobody back there. We tilt up, adjust up to see him look around, go to his POV that he then enters as we're scanning, looking for which column could this guy be behind. As he splashes through some water, we see he come out, our good guy come out from behind the column. And then as the guy's moving, our bad guy's moving towards camera, we tilt down just to pick him up, adjust to see our hero. And we get a little motion out of our guys turning around. The bad guy hoses him. His M42, boom, bad guy gets hit. The other guy hears it. He knows he hears it, runs out of screen and makes a dash move. That fires at him. He lets him have it with the flamethrower. He has to dive out of the way. Rolls through frame. Bad guy's hosing all the columns, knowing he's now seen them. We cut on the action over the flames to give us a cut into the guy running, diving, roll behind a column. Ping, ping. It hits his tanks. Blows up. A wave of smoke and fire goes over our guy. He looks up, comes in the frame, and takes off. We count down, see the carnage. As our guy goes up, we see him stealthily move into place and peer over the top to see, oh my gosh, his way out. He's got to go through a bunch of Nazis. And we get his last reaction. And there you have it. That was approximately 82 panels total. I think I blew through 156 complete stuff that I threw out from when we started. And that was about 5 hours of work that you guys just saw in under an hour. So thank you for watching. I will there's a link, should be a link below, so that you can join me and talk to me live and ask all your questions live about what you just saw and things that I discussed in making this storyboard. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you and answering your questions. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. Glad I came in a little early to see all the comments in the chat box, and I wish I could get to them all. I was trying to get to them all. But I do have some questions in the Q&A. So I guess we'll start with that. And I'll answer those first. So if you guys have a question, go ahead and put it in the Q&A box, and I'll get to as many as I can in the hour that we have. So I hope you enjoyed that. It was really fun to make. And I found just drawing and talking about my process or what I'm doing was really, really, really hard for me, because I would just get caught up in a drawing or not know exactly what I should say about what I was doing. Only after I would get done with a bit, I only did like an hour and a half at a time, I would have all these kind of realizations after the fact. So the last part was a little bit more, for me, fluid in that sense. But let's go to some of your questions as they're coming in. Justine Nicole Sanchez asks, I understand that as a storyboarder, you have to be decisive, and the longer you are in practice or that line of work, you develop taste. How do you compromise with yourself a shot or a scene that looks objectively cool versus what the story and the director asked for? I'm answering that live. That's a great question. I try not to compromise. The only thing that's really compromising is time for me at this stage. At first, there may be some drawing ability. I can't really get that shot because it's a difficult shot, what I see in my head, translating it down to paper. But I've pretty much wiped all those out. I like a hard, challenging drawing. I think I talked about that in the video lecture. And I work really hard so that none of those kind of fall on the editing room floor, so to speak. But a lot of stuff gets thrown out once you get it done, to get it up in front of your director or your head of story to look at, so they can kind of go through it with that more objective eye and start really honing in on what this sequence or the moment's really about. So you want to be decisive. You want to get it up as fast as you can, because storyboarding is an iterative process. Nobody ever boards just once and it's done. There's been, in my 30 years of experience, I think that's happened twice for me. When I was working in TV, doing the New Adventures of Johnny Quest and doing work for Genndy Tartakovsky on Samurai Jack, and I just boarded, and Clone Wars, the animated 2D animated stuff. And I just boarded a Primal episode for second season Primal. You got one coming from me. Those are pretty much one and done because of just the speed of which you need to get it done and get it to the people who are actually going to be animating it. So yes, I have a couple Emmys sitting here for stuff that I just pulled out of my ass and threw down. So who knew? Okay, Ratha Che. Sorry if I butcher names. I apologize in advance. Hi, Mark, former student of yours at CCA. Ratha, how you doing? Quick question, she says. When applying for jobs, is it acceptable to send boards or animatics that is still a little rough around the edges as long as the posing intention is clear? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely it is. why not? I mean, the people you're sending it to looking at boards all the time. And then the usual experience of boards. I mean, when I look at portfolios, if the board's tight, the board artist has it very tight and very cleaned up. I'm all, you don't get that kind of time to clean up this well. So unless you're blazingly fast. So the more you can convey in that rough, loose line, kind of what you were seeing me do, as long as the information is kind of there, it doesn't really matter. If I was looking at the portfolio, how tied down that is. That could be kicked to somebody else's desk sometimes in the industry, a tie down artist or cleanup artist, to get it ready to transfer to go to somebody else if they have questions. But in a feature kind of unit, we don't really get that tie down. So it should be fine in a portfolio. All right, here we go. Answer live. Zach Markey. Hey, Mark, thanks for doing this. No problem. How long did it take for you to become fluent in visual language, i.e. how long before you could put down what's in your head as quickly as you can now? That's a great question. I don't know. I mean, most of my art training was from comic books, drawing what I was seeing in the comic books, trying to draw like John Buscema or Michael Golden or Jack Kirby, and just doing what they were doing. I remember picking up that book, How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, and that was a fantastic eye-opener to visual language, which is kind of a secret kind of study of, how we are influenced by what we see as human beings and essentially animals. So there's a lot of psychology that goes on into the visual languages. And I had lucky to have a couple of really great teachers when I was at Cal Arts. Really open up that idea and breaking down scenes and what they were doing visually to help support the story. And that was really good. If you look at Bruce Bloch's book about visual language, that's a good one to get going on and kind of open your eyes, and then kind of taking that information and looking at films and kind of deciphering that and breaking them down. But it took a while, and I'm still doing it. It's so everything changes, and the styles of filmmaking now have changed. Everybody's doing a Ridley Scott style. Everybody's shooting with basically backlight, or the sun is the light is behind them, so you get these nice shadows and rims, and it looks very beautiful. But now everybody's copying Ridley Scott, who was doing it because he didn't like the stuff that was front lit or off to the side lit, because he likes to see those shadows and stuff. But it keeps evolving, and so we have to keep evolving. Done with that. Katrina Carlin, I'm going to answer live. What kind of boards should you have when setting up your portfolio? Everything. A storyboard artist has to be able to do anything that is required. So the more variation you have in your story portfolio, the better. If you have some dramatic stuff, if you have some funny stuff, if you have some gaggy stuff, if you have some action stuff, if you have some moody stuff, all those boxes are checked. And it doesn't have to be full sequences, people. I don't have time. People looking through portfolios don't have time to look through 80 pages of all your stuff. A couple of pages per thing, even as little as 10 to 12 frames of a moment is enough if there's enough variation. Jesse Shilparot. Loved it. Oh, great. Thank you. What are some of your favorite all-time films or directors, storytelling, shams, comps? Oh, wow. That's a whole nother lecture in there. And I find that it keeps changing. But I think one of my friends asked me, I was doing an exercise breaking down movies, and John Lasseter had said, what are your favorite movies? Make a list of your favorite movies. So I came up with 50 of them. And he said, well, pick 4 and break those down, really deeply. And I'm all, well, which 4 do I pick out of these 50? And my friend Brian Larson, who's also a storyboard artist and was working with me in development at Pixar on some of my projects, said, well, which ones would you have died to make? And I said, that was easy. And my answer was Indiana Jones, the first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Terminator, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, the first one, and The Man Who Would Be King. If my name was directed by on those, I would be in heaven. I just love those movies. They're amazing pieces done by these, directors and storytellers who were hungry and still young at the time and not overthinking stuff and just going from their gut. So check out those four. I have too many. Hannah Harvey, any recommendations for films directors to study for storyboarding? Any personal favorites? Absolutely. If you want to look at economics, just economy of shots and information, the Coen brothers. Absolutely. Miller's Crossing by the Coen brothers. One of my favorites by them, now it just jumps out of my head because I'm old. No Country for Old Men. But pretty much anything by the Coen brothers, even the Ballad of Buster Scruggs, they have visual economy down to a science, and it's fantastic. So check out them. James Cameron's always great to watch. His earlier films, all the way up to Terminator 2, I think are fantastic films to look at for just his clarity of storytelling, for storyboarding. What other ones? Steven Spielberg, most all of his work really well, even from an editing point of view. But what he does with what he has is amazing. And if you want to look at shot structure, if you want to look at how to set up or think in your mind as you're storyboarding about setups, not individual shots, setups, and what you're seeing through kind of what lens and what you're going to capture, that will, he's a master at that. And a lot of people have used his kind of technique. And you can really bring that to storyboarding by studying his films. Oh, I forgot to hit answer live, but we're still doing it. Okay. Recommendation, personal favorites. Those are the directors. Okay. Mark Garcia, how much reference do you have up on your second monitor? It depends. Sometimes a lot. Sometimes very little. It depends on what I need. I did the final episode for Marvel's What If animated series, and that was taking places in locations from the movies. It was taking places in taking place in real locations around the world. So I had to gather all that reference to look at it, and as much reference as I can get that I could shove into my, I know how to draw cars and machine guns and all that stuff now, motorcycles, that's not a problem. I'm talking about very specific kind of reference. I want to get as much as I can so that I can understand this canvas that I have to paint the story on. What are the shots? How tall are the buildings? What are the elements in the environment that I can use to help tell the story? Like from that image that I used, that puddle, the water on the ground, I thought that was a great thing for sound, and the cobblestones, and sometimes a reflection can happen in there. Really put you in that environment. So as much as I can get. Hope that answers your question, Mark. Boone Talon, let me answer live. What's the best way to practice perspective? You got to draw, but what are some things you should look for while you're drawing? To me, I have found that it's all about that damn horizon line, where it is on in the frame, and how are there the characters in relationship to that horizon line. I talked about hanging on the line as a nice little trick to nail your perspective, and I use that all the time. I use it to measure off cars, because if a car is on a horizon line, any car, they're usually the same size, is going to be on the same place in that horizon line. So that's one really good trick. The other thing to do is just get really comfortable drawing. I mean, there's perspective around us every day. Draw your room, draw outside the window, go sit outside and draw a street scene or a building. And I've done that a lot, just to seeing what the usual patterns and shapes are in blocking it out. It's just as important as life drawing for an artist, especially a storyboard artist, because you got to draw what's happening in the shot. You can't just blur it all out or shade it gray and move on. Krutiwa, I'm sorry, I totally butchered that. I'm so sorry. How much time is given? How much time is given to board a sequence for a feature? Well, that's a great question. It depends on page count. When I was in Incredibles, I was giving all my team 1 week to get the first pass out. And you got to understand that in features, you're working on about a minute to 5 minutes of the movie at a time. There's no huge sequences that usually take longer than that. Or if there is, like the big battle sequence in Incredibles at the end, that's broken down into a couple of bits that we divide up. But it's usually a week. And we want that week, again, because it's iterative. I don't want to spend longer than I have to on a sequence just to have the director go, no, not this at all. Then I've just given away to, depending on how, if it was 3 weeks to wait for that sequence, 2 weeks of other drawing time that we could have used to nail it out. So it's very much a business. We have to draw fast, we have to think fast, we have to be economical in our thinking, we have to think the right way, and we have to be decisive because it's going to change. Done with that one. And Young Na, is there any important point where you read scripts? Absolutely. You got to know the story. Read scripts all the time. Read novels, comic books too. I mean, it's all valid. I read the script so I know what's going on. And I could start to see it in my head kind of playing out. So then I can ask the director questions about, how do you see this part? Me and Brad would sit in a room a lot, just talking about breaking down the handout that we're giving to the storyboard artists before we give it to them. Brad sometimes has it very much in his head, and sometimes he don't, and it's loose. So yeah, you gotta, knowledge is half the battle. That's what they say in G.I. Joe, and it's the same here. So read the scripts. Okay, answer live. Aaron Budeman, in the beginning, you definitely crossed the 180 line. Hell yeah, I do. Screw that rule with the reverse shot. But you mentioned something about them being subjective shots. Can you elaborate more on how breaking the rules work? Right. Well, first you've got to understand the rules. When I was working for Sam Raimi on Spider-Man, Sam Raimi never breaks the 180 ever. And what he had me do is label the walls ABC. So I could either see ABC in a shot, right? Think of it as a stage and you're looking at the proscenium. I see ABC because I never see D. That's behind me, behind the camera. And if I go to one shot, I'll see A and B, or if I go to the other shot, I'll see C and B, but I'll never see D in any shot. And he was a stickler for that because in live action, it's all about setting up the lights. And when I was working on co-directing John Carter of Mars, which you all saw and should, that was really an issue of swinging the lights around. So it's that 180 rule comes out of live action. But there's a lot of things nowadays where you can break the 180. But my usual concept to the rules are you have to understand the rules to know how to break them and when to break them. Because what happens is, as I was talking in the lecture a little bit, is that you can use visual anchors. So right now you guys see this little window and a chair and the red behind me. As long as I'm in the shot facing this way or this way, as long as there's a little bit of chair or the window in kind of the shot, we'd be fine screen direction wise of anchoring me to the visual components that are defining me in that shot. And that may sound a little complex, but check it out in films. You'll see people, a lot of filmmakers are doing this. I just shot a short film and I was crossing the line all the time. But in the moment, you're getting the good shot, you're getting that storytelling shot. And then once you get to editing, you're going, whoops, I crossed the line. But depending on the editing and the situation, it actually works. As long as folks are shooting guns, they're shooting guns. I mean, if you look at Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, the sequence where he goes to see Marion and you're inside the little place up in the Nepal, that is it goes by and they're cutting all over the place, and it's bananas how many times they break the 180 and uh, where you think Indiana Jones is versus the other guys. So there's also screen direction. Just if a character is looking to the right, when you cut to the other guy, they better be on the right looking to the left, or at least looking left. They can be on the left looking left, and that's still fine. So again, everything is evolving. But understanding how it's been done, understanding how to break that is very important. So I hope that answers that. That's like a whole 3-hour lecture on its own. All right, Allison Safel, when you mentor artists, what are the common problems that they run into during story solving moments? Camera angle, timing, I guess, actual versus cinematography. Yeah, the biggest problem I see in people are two things. One, they draw too big. So they're claustrophobic and they fill that whole frame and there's no actual information in the shot except the character. And posing. Posing is a huge deal. People get comfortable drawing something one way, or drawing this pose for a run, or drawing this pose for a turn, or whatever, a tumble, or this angle. They get comfortable, and that is really robbing the sequence of all the moments that it could happen, and storytelling, as well as timing. If you look at comic books, they're not doing necessarily cinematics because they aren't restricted to a set aspect ratio. They could change the panel size, but if you look at a comic, there is a sense of timing in the comic based off of the size of the panel and the motion and composition within that frame, and all that stuff can be used in storyboarding as well. It's all about that pose, from a head turn to a lift, and you're slightly in action. So I try to find poses that are kind of the in-between, or the extremes of it. So there's a sense of motion and turning, or whatever there is. So that's the thing I run into the biggest problem with story artists, drawing wise. For solving moments, it's just being inventive. I think everybody, when you're starting out, don't take this the wrong way, is lazy, because it's very daunting. So, and there's lots to handle, and it can be real daunting as a storyboard artist. It's just first starting out. But like I tell all my students or anybody I mentor on my teams, it's do the hard drawing, push outside the box, try something. I draw a lot of stuff that ends up on the floor because I'm trying to find the drawing, and you guys got an example of that in the lecture. But I'm turning the camera. With the advent of SketchUp, I would say all of you, if you're all storyboard artists, learn SketchUp. I taught myself. It's really easy. It's very user-friendly. You can grab stuff from the warehouse and build a scene out of stuff, and rotate the camera and play around with lenses to get ideas. And that's really been awesome, and a very useful tool to do that. So thank you, Allison. Michaela K, any advice for high schoolers interested in storyboarding? I didn't answer that live. Michaela K, any advice for high schoolers interested in storyboarding? Yes, draw. Draw from life, draw from what you're watching on TV, draw from comic books. You got to emulate all that stuff that you love. And the best way to emulate is to draw exactly from what you're seeing, and kind of understanding what those images are and why they're affecting you. But it's basically comes down, there's no silver bullet, people. There's no magic. I can tell you it's just a lot of damn hard work. Answer live. Frank Espina, hi, I'm a storyboard artist and I feel like I don't translate stories well enough into my boards. Okay, what kinds of fundamentals should I return to? That's a great question. Simplicity is best. I think a lot of storyboard artists get really ambitious of what they're trying to convey, and it comes down to boil everything down into the simple beats that make up a whole statement. It's almost like thinking about individual words on a sentence, you know, and we construct as we go. I think that's another thing that everybody needs to consider and really be mindful of. I am making the shit up as I go. That is my first pass. It doesn't come out all fucking nice and everything right off the bat. It's a little struggle. I'm wrestling with it, as everybody does, but I understand it's going to be a fight when I go into the board, and I like that. I like puzzles. I like trying to figure it out, and I have ideas I do right off the top of my head. I have shots that I've used a bazillion times before that I start with, and it's always a process. You start, Frank. So just start, do it, and it's actually what makes a storyboard artist a really good storyboard artist is the editing after the fact that you've barfed it up. So doing it again and again and again and refining and really being an audience to your own work and seeing what comes through and what doesn't, that will help out tons. Okay, Cypress Frankenfeld, what are your work hours like? Is there much crunch time? Yeah, there's crunch time. But, you know, I'm at a level now where unless they want it tomorrow and it's huge, I'm not really disturbed by the crunch times anymore. I've been through that, you know, volcano several times in my career, and I will go through it again. But they can be rough, and still it just comes down to the clear thinking offhand. When I was working on Spider-Man, I didn't know when Sam Raimi was gonna pop in to ask for the board. So I got pages, you know, sometimes 2 to 5 script pages that I have to board. I don't know when he's coming. It was loosey-goosey on when he would pop into my office, but pop into my office he would, so I had to be done. So that was working under a panic all the time. And what I did was I wouldn't draw right away. I think that's a mistake. I think, and I try and visualize it. So at least I have a game plan to I'm not wasting any drawing time, just stuck on trying to figure out one single drawing or a composition or where should I start. I want to think about the moment as much as I can and try things on in my mind. And then once I get, you know, a chunk of it, then I dive into boarding. So that helps tons. It's the correct way of thinking. Janice Chun, between feature and TV, which do you enjoy boarding the most? It doesn't matter to me, honestly. They're both fun and exciting. I think on every feature, they take way too long to board. There's too many cooks in the kitchen. I mean, I do a half an hour animated TV show in 4 weeks is the rough, 8 weeks total for tie down, and that's a half an hour. So I can do a feature just by myself in, what is that, 32 weeks, you know, so 3/4 of the year and you're done. That's one person. So I think having teams and utilizing them better, they can be way more economic and get a whole idea across. Feature tends to labor things, and you spin in story and you spin with the drawings, and you know, 99% of it gets tossed out. So both are rough on the artists because of the iteration time, but they both have their pros and cons, and I dig them both. All right, Annalise Moulter, what advice would you give someone who's just starting out? Great, I'll say it again, draw. There's so much stuff that is out right now that I didn't have when I was a young aspiring artist. I had comic books, and I had Frank Frazetta, you know, books that had all of his art in them, and I didn't know what the heck life drawing is until I got into college. I didn't have any real art teachers until college. So, but now you can hear people like me and tons of other people talk that people record for free. So there's a lot of information out there, and a lot more books and a lot more things online. Behind the scenes stuff that everybody can see now. So you need to, 2 things, gobble as much up as you can to get starting to think about this stuff, and then emulate what you see. Try out the stuff that I've said in this lecture and put it to the test. And that's good training. All right. Rajadendra asks, what do you look for most in a feature story artist work? Well, I look for two things. I look for um, uh, uh, the clarity in their drawing, even if it's rough. That goes for posing. That is for the idea in the shot. That's for the composition and staging. And I also look for, do they have a head for editing? Are they choosing stuff? Are they telling me a story? Are they supporting the story with the visuals? So that's, for me, you're not getting hired by me unless you at least have those two things checked off. I don't care how pretty you draw. That doesn't matter at the end of the day. What matters is the thinking that goes into the sequence and those moments, and that you can convey it, whether it's a flat TV show about characters talking and interacting, or an action animated series for streaming, or a feature. It's about the thinking that's the most important. All right. Drips Paint. That can't be your real name. Anybody know the link for the recording, he said? I don't, but somebody can help you out. All right. Alicia Nash, I'm interested in eventually being a director and wondering how much storyboarding do I need to be able to do or demonstrate? Well, that's a great question. A lot of directors don't know how to draw at all. Ridley Scott does sketches. Steven Spielberg doesn't draw. But it's all about understanding the visual components and visual language to help support the story that you're telling, as well as acting and timing and editing. And the only way to get good at this stuff is to go out and do it. So you should be filming. If you want to be a director, you should be drawing, doing storyboards, doing that, or you should be picking up your iPhone. Everybody has a camera now, so there's nothing stopping anybody, and go out and film scenes. It doesn't have to be epics. It can be a gag. It can be a moment. You run out of toilet paper. I'm just talking out of my, you drop your keys. You can't find your keys. They can have a little beginning, middle, and end, but all that kind of exercises and trying little things out and developing your sensibilities and trying to take these tools and these methods and put them to use. Directors just don't pop up and happen. They come out of the forge having tried all this stuff. All right, answer live. Mariana Tavares says, what are the movies that inspire you the most? Okay, that's another big thing. I should probably post a list somewhere at Lightbox that you guys can see all these things. It's any movie that moves me, really, is the simple answer. Anything that I get drawn up in and caught away and transported out. I mean, one of the reasons why I draw, and I have been drawing since I was a kid, since I was 3, was to escape. I don't like it here, in our world. There's lots of nice things, but there's lots of scary things. And, I had a lot of anxiety. So going into my drawing and focusing on that and escaping into these worlds that I'm making helped me get through tons of stuff. And movies are just another extension of escaping and being another character for, an hour and a half, 2 hours. So anything that moves me. Back in 2012, so I've been nominated for an Oscar. So I've been, and I've received an Oscar. So I get to see the movies as the Academy sends me them, and I get to vote on stuff, which has been fun. But in 2012, I remember seeing 2 movies in particular that really got me, and that was Looper, and the other one was Troll Hunters, not the animated thing, the live action, fake a documentary style one. And both of those movies just floored me. So when I got to my best movie of the year, I put down Looper and Troll Hunters, and there's also 13 Assassins. If you guys haven't seen that, I was blown away. It's amazing. And I put 13 Assassins. They never get picked, but that was my honest reaction. All right, James Daviscourt, what do you aim for anymore? Like you've done TV hits, you've done movies. What's next? What's your goal? Well, I don't kind of think like that. Like I said, it's things that move me, James. So right now I've got a lot of irons in the hopper, lots of fun stuff. They're all different and they are all meaningful to me. And it's just doing at this point and doing more. I want to share with you guys. And I think all artists have this innate desire to see something, do it, and share. And if you don't like it, fine. If you love it, great. Buy me a drink, and everywhere in between. But I can't stop creating things. I have novels I'm working on. I have comic books I'm working on that may never get done. So I'm fueled and always creating, and that's never going to stop. So until I'm dead. Alex Hernandez, how clean do you think your final boards have to be? And do you have any shorthands that you use a lot that have helped your process? Absolutely. I don't think that's all depends on who you're working for, Alex. Some people like them clean. Some people like them just enough. I would leave, Brad Bird likes to tell the story in Iron Giant. I'd be one of the only artists that I would leave at 6, right on the nose, and get out of there. And the producer, Allison Abate, we're all friends. It's all good. She would go, what the hell is he leaving? And everybody's still working. And Brad would go, he's done. He's done. It's all clear. And one of the things that I've done is I don't usually connect lines all the time. When I get down to a little rough tie down stage, I don't usually connect lines. I sometimes don't even have an underdrawing. You don't have to finish hands or feet or whatnot. So if I'm drawing the side of a building, I may knock out 2 windows, 3 windows. That is awesome. That's Milo, by the way. People are asking. That's Milo. He's my inspiration, right, buddy? Yeah. But I don't, I just draw as economically as I can and get out the door. So that's helped my process. All right. Teo Lindo. Hey, Mark, could you share your thoughts on how much screenwriting story artists should be delving into? Thank you. That's up to you. You can definitely do some screenwriting. It's a different beast than storyboarding because you're trying to be descriptive, and oh my gosh, what a headache. How to break down, a drawing into words. A picture is worth 1,000 words. So you can see the issues that you're going to be having right then and there. I got into screenwriting for me to help decipher what the translation issue is from writers who write to story artists who visualize. And there's a huge gap there. A lot of writers are not visual people. And a lot of visual people aren't necessarily writers. So I like the old adage, know thy enemy. Not that script writers or writers of any kind are my enemy, but it is something that is pushing and pulling on you as an artist out there. So understanding scripts and that process, and anything that I can do to help bridge that gap is why I got into screenwriting and learning that as well. And I think coming from a visual background has helped my writing. So I don't have to write out every single move that's happening in a fight scene. I could just say they fight dirty, or they fight sloppy, or that kind of thing. It's all about the adverbs. So there you go. It's up to you, screenwriting or no. Anonymous attendee. How would you recommend practicing storyboard when there's nobody experienced around to give you feedback? That's a great question. I would storyboard from movies. We had that in Cal Arts. I've given that as an assignment too, and it's a great assignment to really slow down and break down what you're watching. So you could actually see kind of the behind the scenes of the visual language coming together. And just studying that and breaking down and drawing bits of scenes from movies is huge. It's a huge thing. It will give you lots of insights, and that will help if there's nobody around. All right. Nikhil, how are you dealing with the motivation and inspiration during the crazy new normal of COVID wildfires? Hope you're all doing well and safe. I am doing well and safe. Thank you for asking. Staying indoors a lot. But yeah, motivation and inspiration has not really been my problem. If I hit a brick wall or a blank page and I don't know anything, I'll go play the drums. I'll play Dungeons and Dragons with my kids. I'll walk the dogs. I will surf the net, Pinterest, looking for cool images. I will read. I will exercise. I will sword fight. And I find that once I'm doing anything else but what I'm supposed to be doing, all of a sudden ideas start coming. And I think that's the big takeaway, is you need to relax to actually think. So if it's a struggle, get away from it for a minute, right? And ideas will just drop into your head, and then you'll find motivation, or you'll find inspiration. Motivation is different. I think you just got to sit down and do it, you know, and give yourself a schedule during the day. I've been doing a lot of freelance boards for folks and kind of getting back to my roots. And it's been really fun. But getting up and going, okay, I'm going to start at 10 o'clock because I wake up, I eat breakfast, I'm going to work out, and I'm going to sit down, I'm going to work, and I'm going to break at noon or 1 to have lunch, and I'm going to sit down, I'm going to work, and I'm out at 5, and that's that. And having that daily routine really, really helps. Nico Selma. Hi, any practice suggestions to improve acting and staging? Absolutely. Again, emulate from what you see. You could freeze, you know, we have the ability now to freeze the images, you know, on our TV screens, you know, watching movies and stuff like that. And something that catches your eye, looking through magazines. I am an image hound, and I spend a lot of time just searching for stuff. And if it's an interesting, great image from an athlete or somebody getting out of a car, or snapshot or something, I mean, they're almost non sequiturs. I throw them in my Pinterest board, and I may never look at them again because I've seen it. But that's one thing that you can do. The other thing that you can do is act it out. I'm doing that all the time, and I look like a moron doing it. But acting it out is huge, because once I get it in my body, I know what it feels like, and I could really accentuate that in the drawings. And I use my hands a lot to stage things. You know, two people walking, you know, and one will walk off as I pan this way. My head's the camera, and I'll see what happens in the change. You know, it's like people, you know, fighter pilots talking about dog fights with their hands. I'm doing that all the time. And SketchUp has been a huge help to easily extrude a shape and block it out and tumble around, and I'll get ideas from that. So that helps. Anne Maslin, what advice do you have when approaching action? As someone who is more comfortable with comedy boarding, what should we consider when working on action sequences? Any good references that we should be looking at? Thank you. Yeah, well, I mean, great question. It's the same thing as comedy. It's all about the timing. Action is all about the timing. It's about the attention. It's about understanding what's going on. So you have to be a little bit predictable in where you're setting up the gag of the action to understand what's happening and what the stakes are, and especially how the subject, the characters are motivating. What do they realize, what and when, and how do they change their minds? I talk about mechanics a lot, and this is the mechanics to everything, to a dramatic scene, to comedy, to mood, to action. It's a bit intellectual at first, and by the end of the moment, the end of the sequence, now you can throw a bunch of information and we're following it. And James Cameron is one of the best out there for doing that. It's very, very clear what's happening on his action scenes. Greengrass, I like his movies, but not so much, because that's about more emotion and the energy. And I don't know what's going on, and throwing the camera around and getting some stuff, and you're in the scuffle. But if you watched any Jet Li movies, Once Upon a Time in China, Hero, I mean, there's tons of them. Some of the Un Bak stuff coming out of Thailand and the Philippines. John Wick, for example, the action is very, very clear, and the camera's back so we can see that motion and watch them do it and be amazed. And then every once in a while, get in to feel the punches and the hits. So it's all about timing and snap. And finding those moments to really accentuate in an action scene. There's I think about it as like playing the drums, because I play the drums, that it's a cymbal hit, and a joke is like a cymbal hit. It's that ba-dum, pss, So you're building up to these certain moments and then you're resetting in an action scene. So again, great question, but that's a lot. That's a whole nother, that's like a, you know, a semester, you know, course if I was teaching, but thanks for the question. Drips paint again. Okay, here we go. Not his real name or her real name. Is the demo recorded? I believe so. Somebody could answer that for me, my co-host. He will have all that information. All right, here we go. A. Steinberger. Hi, Mark, from former college student. Right on from a million years ago. Ha, ha, ha. Do you have any tips for moving from TV to feature? Yeah, and feature you get to slow down a little bit. And I don't know what kind of TV you've been doing, but you can get way more cinematic usually in feature depending on what you've been working on. But it's pretty much boarding is the same. I boarded animated TV, animated features, live action features, and to me, it's all the same. There's actually no translation. It depends on the style of show that you've been doing. I think that's a bigger issue, whether you've just been doing comedy and now you're going on to storyboard a Marvel film. Good luck. That's going to be a big learning curve, or going the other way. But it's all doable. And if you're covering all the bases, which means composition, staging, acting, and editing, everybody should be good if that's where they're concentrating on. Okay, CJ Ru Soto, any advice for a self-learner storyboard? What is the most basic thing I need to learn and keep applying besides perspective? Just drawing your ass off. You have to draw. You have to be able to turn an object in space, a human body, a car flipping. Ted Mathot, one of my storyboard artists, he was the head of story on Incredibles 2. Ted's a super talented dude. And I got to work with him on Incredibles and Ratatouille. And he and some of the other artists would always marvel about how I drew the underside of cars, because there was some detail there, but I didn't throw in tons of detail, just the key bits, but it made it more real and you could feel the weight and stuff. So where you place the detail, but it's just understanding what it is you're drawing is huge for a storyboard artist. Anissa Kriz. In the beginning, you mentioned that understanding perspective is important. Yes. As I watch you draw, I see just how helpful it can be. Good. How do you get about understanding the 3D space of your 2D drawing, such as rotating the camera around in the scene? Great question. By doing it, just by drawing, and lots of bad drawings, Anissa. There's so many drawings, so many trees I have killed trying to figure out perspective, and that was something that I was concentrating on a lot because it helps in your regular drawing too, of drawing characters or drawing anything, and it puts us in the space. And I find that with most storyboard artists, perspective is like just forgotten about because it's too hard, or it's just not done correctly. And again, if you work on it and nail it, the information that comes from that panel to the people who are going to then shoot it on a stage or out in location or be animating it or laying it out in a feature or a TV series, you're helping them do their job. So the stronger base you give them, the less work they have to do so they can concentrate on the higher end work that they're going to do. So I always think about it as solid foundations every step of the way. So for example, when I was working on Spider-Man, I had an Academy, he had an Academy Award-winning cinematographer. And we were looking at my boards and going through it with a fine-tooth comb. And there was one shot, was very low to the ground. It was when Peter Parker was chasing after the guy who killed his uncle in the movie. Sorry, spoilers. And the police were coming in, and I was pulling the camera back as they were gaining on camera and right out the window, and there's no Spider-Man in there. The previous shot, Spider-Man was standing right by the window. So he had escaped over the cut. But the DP said, I can't get that shot. There's no lens that's made that's that wide. And I turned and I looked at him in my foolish 25-year-old self. I said, it's approximation. What more information do you need? And he was just being a dick because Sam follows the boards almost literally. And he was getting a little uppity. But I challenged him back. I said, it's approximate. It's a low camera. You're going to come and you're going to boom and right out the window. So it has to be low and it has to be wide. You're lighting it and you choose the lens, but the information is there. So I think he didn't like me doing his job for him. Chester Law. I noticed that in the storyboard that the hero moves screen right, okay, and then cuts to him moving screen left because we cut the stormtrooper's perspective. I feel it works great, but does it technically break screen direction? What's your thoughts on this? It depends. I can reset screen direction at will because I'm a master of screen direction. As long as the audience isn't confused. If it works great, it feels great. It depends. I did a movie where they asked me for screen direction that the hero was always moving to the right. And then we got into a fight scene and I'm bouncing all over. And at the end of the fight scene, he walks off to the right. And they had me come back and redo that action sequence. So all the characters' moves were, he was moving left to right. And I said, why? He's all, because that's how screen direction works. And that is not how screen direction works. And it was total bullshit. And that's like, you know, directing movies 101. And it's a theme. You look at Lord of the Rings, they're always moving to the right, but not in every damn case. You know, the fight for Mordor, the final battle, there's lots of stuff, directions that are happening. So you can reset, and I can reset because we're in a new situation. And I do that all the time in action films. You can see that happening all the time. And that's okay because it's another chapter. It's the next thing we're moving on. And if you look at the car chase, watch Ronin and look at the screen direction in that thing, man. It is all over the place. It's going left to right, right to left, left to right, right to left, left to right, right to left. And they want that because it's more frenetic, because your eye is actually traveling and there's more head movement. There's more physical activity watching the movie. I mean, that movie screen, not on your phone, but the movie screen is huge. And that is also part of the film language. It's actually the physicality of the audience getting involved and participating by watching and tracking what's happened. So I want to keep everything left to right. That gets monotonous, right? But if I'm all over the place, depending on the moment, it totally works great and helps emphasize and heighten that storytelling. Jada R, do you usually get to act out your storyboards for clients? All the time. Are you kidding? The pitch is one of the most essential things. And I always say you got to pitch it in the same timing that you're seeing it. And so I do special effects. I do the characters' voices. I mean, everything, anything to sell it. Because if you're kind of going, well, anyway, so they're crossing the screen and there's a car and they throws a grenade. The director and the producer is going to be going, I don't know if the sequence works. And it can totally work great. But if the pitch sucks, they're not going to be sold. And you want that to fall on the director and the producer really hard. They got to think that this thing is awesome so that when they pick at it, they're picking at the tiniest little things to tweak it, to take it that much over the top, the cherry on top. So yeah, you gotta sell it. William Silva, thanks, man. This talk was awesome. I'm glad you liked it, William. What are the things / abilities that you would say are most important in a story artist? I'm an animator and I'm thinking of moving into story. What should I start learning? Well, you don't have to pose as much. It's not all about acting. You're going to have a lot of other plates that you got to spin as a story artist. You're going to have editing. You're going to have timing in a different way because you're going from shot to shot and the information in the shot. Definitely camera, cinematography, screen direction, visual language. I mean, so much is important to the story artist. I don't think you can just pick one and do that. So yeah, this is like the SEAL team. You have to learn it all and get in there. So start practicing now, man. Drew Friedman, how cleaned up should your boards be for a portfolio? It totally depends, Drew. I should be able to see, even in your rough drawings, that you know what you're doing. And this is one thing I'll tell everybody, that if your life drawings are better than your storyboard drawings, you're fired. I'm not hiring you. The drawing should be consistent throughout. So whatever that was in the life drawing, you better bring it to your storyboard drawings, because I don't want the cheap work when I hire you. I want the best work. So as far as cleanup, I don't care if they're, well, I do care if they're clean, because nobody has time to clean up drawings that much. So if you can convey it with less lines and it's a little rough and the ideas are coming through, then you're hired. Anonymous attendee, do you take information from live action for your camera movements? Having watched a lot of live action, it just kind of seeps in. But I'm also, and we're emulating. I mean, so that automatically happens. I mean, the language is the same. When I was working on John Carter, I found it was really interesting that my camera ops, and they've worked on tons of movies. They have way more experience shooting a movie than I have in live action. But I've drawn a lot of shots, and I've probably drawn as many shots as they have shots. So it was great working with them. But one thing that I discovered with them, we shared the same language, but the one thing, they were setting up for cool shots. They weren't setting up for storytelling shots. And as soon as they would have me look at the camera, they say, "What do you think about this?" And I'm all, "Well, this is great, but I'm not tracking the story." And they would say, "What are you talking about?" I'm all, "Well, John Carter's got to realize he can fire that gun and that he doesn't have a sword and he's got to do something. We need to convey that in the shot." So you can do that with cuts. We can do that as he looks. You can adjust minor judges. So we get all those individual beats, put together the sentence that he's screwed and he's got to do something. And they got on board with that super quick, and we had a lot of fun. But I was pretty shocked that wasn't a priority or necessity all the time. And I don't bust them. It's a lot of directors out there just want cool shots, because that's what movie making is. And visual storytelling is a lot more than cool shots. Casey Mullen, for more action-intensive sequence like this one, how do you go about making sure not to lose clarity of the actions? Great question. I've noticed the more complex a scene is, some of the clarity of the shots get lost. How do you prevent and avoid this? Trial and error, just going over it again and again and again. And I look back at my stuff. Back in the day when we were still doing paper, I would roll my story panels just to see how the flow and the motion was going. If my eye was tracking and it cut well. And I still do that, but now on the computer, I could turn on and off stuff. And like I was doing in the seminar, play it back for me. And I can see if I'm missing a moment, or if I feel I've gone too far, or if there's not enough information there, or if something's unclear. So it's essentially, you're building, and we build as we go and we layer. Nobody thinks it out fully first and does it one time through. That's just, you know, an impossibility. Not that it can't be done, but you know, I've never seen it. Abigail Diller, where did you start your career as a story artist? That's a great question. Where did I start as a story artist? I went to Cal Arts, and you have to do everything. You have to storyboard it, character design, and animate it and lay out. And then after that, and I didn't know it at the time, but I was really interested in, I was really having the best time when I was storyboarding it. And it wasn't until I got into the Disney internship, and in the Disney internship, they make you pick at the end of you do 3 months, at the end of the summer, they pick. You're going to be an animator, a layout guy, an effects guy, a cleanup, a storyboard artist. And I didn't want to pick. I thought that was unfair. And so I did a storyboard portfolio, and I did a animation portfolio, and they didn't hire me at all because I rocked the boat. I was okay. It turned out great. But that just showed me that, well, if I have to decide, I like storyboarding. I mean, I like the acting. I like being with the character, but I get that too in storyboarding. In fact, I get to be everything. I get to be an editor, the actor, the layout guy, a story guy, the writer, and a director. So I liked being able to put my 2 cents in more of the story. So that's how it started right there. And then I went into TV, and that was a trial by fire, and The New Adventures of Johnny Quest. I knocked out 5 episodes for them in a year. All right, Chauncey Pierce. Here we go. What is a gracious way to deal with a client when she doesn't know what they want? Oh, I had a negative experience working on a commercial, but I kept my head up and completed the job. Well, good job. That's tough. A lot of clients don't know what they want, and they're second guessing themselves. And the worst note I ever got is, "I'll know it when I see it." That just means you don't know anything. And you know what? Sometimes they don't know anything. And, you know, our job, storyboard artist's job, storyteller's job, even a character designer's job, an animator's job is to get a response. We're all, you know, trying to get through into the safe and pick that lock to understand what the director kind of wants or sees in the head or doesn't want. And I find that that's why you need to work fast. You need to work dirty, but with enough information so that they understand what's going on, and give it to them. And if they don't know, engage them. Ask them, what don't they like, right? What do they need it to feel like? And it may be very subjective and weirdly superficial and stuff, but it's more tax on the project or the moment or the sequence or the scene. As long as you have the time and money, it's their money and time to spend, and there you go. That's why it's a job. But yeah, just keep asking questions. It's great, and keep turning around stuff and getting that feedback. Mai-Tran, what is your advice for a new person stepping into the industry? What do you look for in a portfolio? I've covered this, but that's okay. I love covering it. I look for a thinking in a person when I'm looking in a portfolio, that they understand story, that they're trying to think about the story, the staging, the composition, the editing. They're using visual components to help support what I'm seeing, and they have something to say. Drawing ability, we'll work with that. But thinking is really hard to actually pull out of people. So as long as there's even a little bit in there, I can work with that. Go to the next one, Akiko Govan. What resources and tips would you recommend to learn film, language, camera movement, cinematography, etc., strengthen storytelling, storyboarding skills? Emulate what you see, folks. Just do it. Watch those movies, even the bad ones. I learn more from bad movies than I do from good movies, because good movies, they just kind of work, and you kind of go, why? But it's really obvious why they work once you watch a bad movie. So watch a bad movie, go, oh my gosh, and you'll find yourself solving the problems that they didn't have time to, or ignored, or they compromised, or whatever it was. I mean, everybody's intent is to make a good movie. You know, not everybody just wants to make a bad one, but there's tons of bad ones out there. But watching a movie that's doesn't work really shows you what to do by showing you what not to do. And drawing them, I mean, just try drawing them and copying, and then you can see what they're doing and try to understand why they did it. Wow, drip paint. This is 3. Is the demo recorded? Yeah, Jamie will answer that. Michael Velado, what's been the most challenging storyboard project you've worked on? Ratatouille. I hate Ratatouille. I hated the idea. I hate talking animals that are anthropomorphic. I just don't, it's just not me, really. Especially, you know, rats. I used to have a pet rat, so I love rats, but it's just not me. And it was a comedy, and that's not really, you know, my thing. And it was jaggy. But when Ratatouille happened, and Brad called me up on that fateful day as he took over the film, and I was his first call. He's all, I need you as head of story, man. I was already in development, developing my own things, and he's all, I need you. And I knew as soon as the phone rang and I heard Brad's voice, I'm going to have to say yes, because I love working with Brad. And I was going to have to find a way to like Ratatouille. And so what I got into is I got into the cinematography to be able to tell that story at 2 different scales, human scale and rat scale. I was invested in that. And then finding those moments all through that storytelling. So, but that's been the most challenging. All right. Deborah, Renga, any good habits to keep suggesting for drills to hone your boarding skills? Second question, what's the name of your dog? Milo is the name of the dog. He's gone now. As for drills, yes, I have a drill called drop 3 times, where you draw something that you're looking at, you draw from what you drew, and then you just draw from memory. That helps with locking stuff into your head of how things work out there in real life, from a person to anatomy to a structure to cars and motorcycles and planes and stuff like that. Just got to be drawing a lot. Another thing that I do for storyboards is I find an image, like I did this whole thing that seminar that I did for you, is you do that, find an image that is a storytelling, use that as your exposition and draw the next 5 shots. You can knock off a bunch of those a day or once a day or a couple times a week. And that will get you going down paths that you wouldn't normally be going down, and do stuff that's out of the box, like I did on Ratatouille and some of the other stuff I worked on. Okay, Charlie Parisi, how was your time working on Samurai Jack? Awesome. What was some knowledge you gained from working in such a stylized show? Well, you know, it was so stylized, and I'm not a stylized guy, so that was just a struggle to make it kind of look like Jack and to be fluid with that. But it's an action show, you know, and it's mostly pantomime with very little dialogue. It's heaven, and Gendy really trusts his board people, and so he left me alone. I would go away, I would do it, I'd show him the rough, he'd have a couple notes, I'd knock the rest out and turn it in. Boom, Emmy's sitting in my office somewhere. It was really fun. Anonymous attendee, what is something you wish you had known about storyboarding before you got your first job? Oh, that's a great question. What was something that I wish I had known? Oh boy. I don't know. That's a great question. Well, that not all directors are the same. And people have their own processes to go for to tell the story. And so I've worked on shows where I've been completely wasted, or that didn't see film and storytelling the same way that I did. And those were always a struggle, because it would be philosophical fights, mostly, of how best to do stuff. So if I had known that, I think I better could have prepared myself for A, what do I really want to work on to make choices, and B, if there was no choice, you know, still deliver for them the best that I can do the way they want it to see it, because they're the one directing it or paying me to do it. Anonymous attendee, what's another must-read book? Artistic influence. Wow, artistic influence. Crap. What's a good book? Artistic influence. I don't know. Anything that really lights you up. Again, I'm an image hog, so I have lots of stuff. I like the French comics. I like some manga. You know, I was raised on Appleseed by Masamune Shirow and Akira, which is some of the best stuff out there, and very cinematic and great staging and great acting and poses and editing. And so I've tried to emulate that. Some of the Golden Age, Silver Age Marvel comics as well, even stuff today. I mean, Mike Mignola Hellboy has influenced me a lot, of just the economics, visual economics he has. But also painters of the past. I get into a lot of paintings, the big storytelling paintings. And one of the best museums I went into was the Tate Britain in England. Not the Tate Modern, but the Tate Britain had most of my favorite paintings in there at these huge scales. And you're going, oh, that's why they painted them that big, because they wanted you in this valley as the lightning is striking the hills and they're collapsing on you, or King Arthur, the knight is riding in and it's Arthur, you know, in gold armor. They wanted you to feel that was movies back then, even before photos. So I hope that kind of helps. It's up to you. Max Rodriguez, from all the portfolios you've reviewed, who really stood out to you? Oh my gosh, I have no idea now. I mean, that's like fire and forget mind juice. I need space up here, man. I'm getting older. So um, a lot of people stood out. A lot of people were surprising. A lot of people stood out and were disappointments. So lots of different reactions of people. But you know, I can work with anybody. I like working with people. I learned early on in my career, I had some great heads of story that were instructive and took the time. And that's huge if you're a head of story, to be able to stop and answer those questions and help these artists kick up a notch. So that's why I'm still doing stuff like this, and basically sharing what I've learned however I can. Rahendra again, do you prefer to work in feature animation television? Either or, I don't care. It's all good to me. Amy Lee, hi Mark. As for people who are starting out as storyboard artists, what tips would you give as far as presenting their portfolio on a website? What do directors, recruiters usually look for? They're looking for all the individual stuff that they need to get their show done. So that may be a style that is similar to theirs, or that you could do the style. It really depends on the show. A lot of places do tests to see if you fit and you can do it, because they have a strong style that they need to convey. Or like I was saying before, do you have that story mind? Do you understand editing and story and pacing and shot progression and composition and acting and posing? So you don't want to overburden your portfolio. You don't want 100 pages in there, 50 pages. Everybody should be doing it in 8 to 10 pages at the most, and a sample of everything that you can do. Leave the life drawings out. I don't care. Leave the animal drawings out. I don't care. I want to see that you can board. I'm going to butcher this name. I'm sorry in advance. Guilherme Figueiredo Mata. So sorry. Hey, Mark, can you recommend any specific training for constructing a board scene? Yeah, man, again, I got to tell you, specific training is study film. Look at it. Not so much animation, but the live action stuff, because they're going out and they're thinking in broader strokes. They're thinking about setups. The motorcycle races through and jumps off the thing and down the cliff, and they get that in a shot, and then they start thinking about getting the medium shots, and then they figure they get close-ups, and then they move on, and it's done in editorial. And what animators have been doing our whole lives has been emulating live action films without really knowing how live action film has been made. And it's made from a bunch of different shots going to the editor, and the editor piecing together in a bunch of different ways. So if we can do that in our heads, and make passes, and find what my friend storyboard artist Kevin O'Brien calls tent poles, these key moments in the scene, and he like figures those 3 or 4 out, and then he works into and out of those. And that's another great way to approach it. I work the way that either I see it from the get-go and I get lost, or I see the end, or I see the middle, and I start wherever I see it, and then start layering in, because I'm the audience as I'm boarding. So I'm reacting as I'm boarding, and that's huge. All right, anonymous attendee, how did you balance creating Tales of Colossus with your day job at Pixar? Secretly and quietly, working at night and on weekends when nobody was looking. Yeah, I didn't get any sleep for a year. That was 10 months about, working 8-hour days, sometimes more, and then going home and working till 2 in the morning or 3, and then working 8 hours Saturday and Sunday to get that sucker done. So it's just will, man, or lady. It's just will. You have to have the will. Drips Paint. Sorry, Bruce who? Bruce who? Bruce. I'm gonna have to look back. Of which Bruce? Jocelyn. Hey, Mark, for our current art students, what do you recommend we start practicing to begin storyboarding? anything. You just need a story or a moment. Or one exercise I give is you find a headline out of a paper or on your feed and draw that up. Or you find that image is really good for just generating. They're like prompts, right? Story prompts, storyboard prompts. Getting the mail, standing in line at a grocery store, somebody, getting robbed. I mean, anything to get into something happens. What does the character do when that something happens? That's the choice that they're making. And just draw, just start practicing. Let's see, Brandon Hill, as most of us know, you have had a lucrative career. Wow, lucrative. Okay, sure. What was your favorite project so far that you worked on and why? Well, that's a trick question, Brandon Hill. I've loved all the well, that's not true. I've learned something from all the projects that I've worked on. I'm not going to tell you which ones I hated, but I love everything that I work on because everything is a new challenge. And like I said way long ago, I love puzzles and trying to figure out how to get this moment or this scene in particular to this project up there and to convey that so an audience experiences that. I just love that challenge. So it doesn't matter what I'm on. And that's really my honest answer. Anonymous attendee. Hey, Mark, any advice on how to develop instinct? Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. I got to think about that for a second. Context. I'm really slow when I'm bored. Okay. And I'm up to the end of my deadline. Yeah, that happens. I find I can make choices quicker when I have less time. Of course, because the house is on fire. You got to figure out what's most important to you. But I like to get to a place where I can make decisions quicker and have more confidence in my choices. That's great. I would just take the fuck it approach. That's one way to do it. You just say, look, here's my thing. My deadline's in a week, but you know what? I'm going to knock this out by Wednesday. And knock it out by Wednesday. And you have 2 more days to play around with it and look back on it. So I always have at least a couple of passes when I was a board artist before I ever showed my head of story, so that I knew I was thinking about it the right way and I was exhausting what could happen and doing it the most economic way and making it as clear as I can. So if I had a week to do it, I'd be able to do my sequence twice, at least twice, maybe three times, or portions of it a few times before my head of story even seen it. And they may come in and change the whole thing, and that's fine. But at least what they got was they got that honest, real take, not me being, lazy. And I'd say for instinct is really what are the movies that you like? What are the things that speak to you? And I think working with people, there were times when I was really in sync with the director. And it's like, I had the same instinct they did. Oh my gosh, that's great. Or my head of story, I had the same instinct they did. And I would use that as my guide. Me and my friends, we all went to CalArts, some earlier and later than I did. And we get together and we talk about things. We all kind of have, everybody's a unique snowflake, but we have a lot of the same kind of instincts and the ways that we approach. Because we kind of all like those same movies. So talking to your friends and your colleagues at work and trying stuff out on them. It's all about trial and error, man or lady. So that's what you need to do. Magdalena Pablos Grandos. Do you remember any anecdote when you were totally sure no one would say, no, do the sequence again, we won't get it. Why this as a professional artist? Thank you for sharing. Storytelling is subjective. There's a million and one ways to skin a cat or to do a shot. And everybody's talking out of their ass, even me. You don't know until you do it. And the proof is in the pudding. So that's kind of the catch-22 is I have to do it to see it, to feel it if it's going to work or not, and to have that honest reaction to it, whether it's the direction the director or me as a director want to go or not, or how I want to convey the information, or what's even the priority and importance of the information. So nobody's wrong and everybody's right, and yet sometimes they're wrong and absolutely not right. Again, it's subjective, and whoever's paying the money gets to have the final word, and that's totally fine. As far as an anecdote, working on Incredible. So we were up against it. We hadn't been seeing Brad as the story team. I'm wrapping off all my people. It's just me and Peter Soames, one of my story artists, to finish off the film. Everybody's gone off. I mean, it's being animated right now. We're down to the wire, and we still haven't finished the film. We don't have the final battle sequence, right? And we don't have the sequence where Syndrome comes and he has the baby and gets sucked through the jet engine. No capes. So we had an hour with Brad. Brad came in, talked to me and Pete, and we basically were riffing in the room of ideas of what it could be. And in that hour, we got the scene, and we high-fived on the way out. Brad high-fived, and he had to go, animation, drive-bys or whatever. And me and Pete got to work starting board it, and we were turning around in one day. So it was like 5 hours of work. We turned around 6 hours. We turned around the sequence. So he came in the next day and saw it. And I had Peter Sohn pitch it so I can watch Brad. And Peter Sohn was pitching it. And I've told all my story folks is you never stop pitching. I don't care if a meteor lands or if there's an earthquake. Somebody yells, oh no, this is all wrong in the middle of the sequence. Cuts a fart, whatever. You don't stop pitching because the television doesn't stop, when you have it on, and neither does the movie. So you just keep going. So in this case, Peter was pitching and Brad was starting to shake his head. And then he crossed his arms and shaking his head. And then he started pulling out his hair. And then he stood up, bouncing up and down. And I can see Pete's eyes getting wider and wider as he's pitching. And I know Brad did not like what he was seeing. And as soon as Pete was done, he finished, and Brad turns to me and goes, what the fuck was that? And I stood up, I don't fucking know. It's exactly what we talked about yesterday. And what had happened was, and this was an invaluable lesson, we talked about the story beats, and they're the exact same story beats that we had discussed and agreed to. But the way he saw it and the way I saw it, in conveying those exact same beats, whether it was low or was a high, whether it was left or whether it was right, whether the screen direction was this way or this way, whether we were wide or whether we were close, were completely different. And like ships in the night, we passed each other. The intent passed each other. I can't see in his head. And, maybe he thinks that I actually did see in his head. So it all turned out all right. He had something to react to, and it wasn't a total do-over. He liked some of the ideas that we had, and he said, I was really seeing this as this, and we got in, and that was the whole process. This is a game of interpretation. And I wish somebody told me that before I started. It's all about interpretation, and it is sometimes a fist fight to understand what the hell is going on and where you're going to land. So a storyboard artist needs to have a very, very, very thick skin and be calm in the face of absolute chaos. So for all you storyboard artists starting and wanting to do that, well, there you know. Okay, Andy Baker, is it important for board artists also do the animatic these days, or submitting still beat boards is okay? It's okay. It's totally cool. Sometimes you don't have the time to do the animatic, and that's all right. Usually I time all my stuff and give it at least, because that's, again, timing and story. That's like I talk about the levels that you learn in storyboarding, and timing's way up at the top. That's an advanced story class. That's for a whole semester that you develop over doing this over and over again. But I always give timing because, again, that's information. How long we're on something or how short we're on something is pacing. That's timing that ties directly to the story and emotion. And knowing how to use these things to tell the story is very, very important. You guys just beginning out, you don't need to worry about that now. You'll get there later. Or come back and see me in a few years. But I always submit it so that people have something to react to, and they can go, this is too fast, this is too slow. Again, totally subjective, and they can change it. Carl Uriza, hi Mark, when making boards, how clean is the standard to break into the industry and landing your first storyboarding job? I keep getting mixed answers saying it's okay to be really rough, but they have to be clean. Can you give your take on how clean the boards have to be? Okay, yes, this is a definition problem of clean and rough. I do chicken scratches. You guys seen that. And that's why I like doing that and drawing it, so you guys could kind of see what I did to get tied down and what I kind of left a little bit more loose. As long as all the information is there so that I know what's happening, who it is, where I am, that should be enough. Some people, depending on the show, are going to want a tight tie down because it's going somewhere else to be animated and looked over with a fine tooth comb. And they don't have a quick back and forth. So it totally depends. My guiding principle is clarity or cleanness just is enough so I understand what's going on. If you're doing shadows and painting the boards and stuff like that, nobody has the time to do that unless you're getting paid to clean up somebody else's boards and put tones on them and paint them up. But nobody in real life has time to do that. So I hope that answers that. What are some common mistakes you tend to see in aspiring student story portfolios? I said this again, Rachel, but I will say it again because I don't mind saying it. Everybody draws too close. They draw way too big. They don't draw at size. If you draw at size on, you know, I'm looking here at my Cintiq and it's huge, bigger than an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. I'm like drawing on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper whenever I board. I blow down and I bring it up, of course, but I draw at size, so I know exactly how much is going to fit within the shot. So most aspiring students don't do that. And they get lazy doing thumbnails, and that's all the information. There's so much more information in a shot that you need to convey than a thumbnail can hold. So there's that. Staging, everybody ignores. Cinematography, people ignore. Composition, people ignore. Or they just go to standard shots that are in books, thinking that's all you have to do, and that's not. It's not. The books are misleading. And then a sense of story and pacing and timing. So you just gotta, it's trial and error. Nicholas Sitbon. Hi, Mark. Thanks for a talk. You got it. How do you have to think about lighting and values at this phase? No, but I always do because it's always on in my mind. I'm thinking about lighting all the time. And sometimes, depending on the sequence where the lighting is actually key, I will put the lighting in. For example, on Iron Giant, when Hogarth is getting, he's caught by Kent Mansley and he's getting interrogated. That's a single light on him. And so I did my panels in Sharpie and I colored all that black and really hurt my hand doing that. But lighting was important with Kent coming in and out of shadow and what was happening on Hogarth. It was important. Another anecdote, Ratatouille. When Remy is going to be killed and thrown in the Seine right by under the bridge by Notre Dame, and Linguini lets him out and he runs away and disappears into the shadows and comes back. He rides up on a bicycle. I did all that and I put the lighting in, tones, because that was part of the mood. You're going to kill somebody. It's like murder on a back alley, and the scene changes. The coming from the shadows into the light. That is all storytelling about being seen and recognized. It had to be with the light. So I chose that, and I was ahead of story on that show, so I give myself as much time as I wanted. I still turned it in within a week. All right, Fitra Nafal. I'm so sorry about your name, me pronouncing your name. Hi, Mark. Thanks for the demo. It was awesome. Awesome. Here's my question. Things you wish you knew when you were a beginning story artist. Thank you, Mark. That sometimes who you're working for is going to be an asshole. There's nothing you can do about it, but do the best work that you can. Also, that it is a job that is all about redoing it over and over and over again. Iteration is the key. It's also a job where things are subjective. So they may ask you to do something that you have no idea what they're talking about or why that's important or it feels wrong. Yeah, you still got to do it. And also that I said some things before about this, but tips I knew as a beginner story artist. That's my 52-year-old mind is starting to blank on what I said before. But yeah, it's a lot of drawing. It's a lot of changes. It's a lot of notes. It's a lot of mystery. So you're going to have to like solving that puzzle to be a great board artist. Okay. James Minto, hey Mark, I really appreciate this talk. Awesome. What do you wish you had known or wish you had been doing when you started out based where you are now? Great. Well, I grew up in Los Angeles and Santa Barbara, and then came back to school in Los Angeles for Cal Arts. Started there. Now moved up to the Bay Area to work with Brad on Incredibles 20 years ago. So what should I have been doing? I don't know. I think I was doing it. I wasn't sweating it. I worked on my projects. I always did. I always gave 110%, even on the shows that I freaking hated, because in this industry, it's all about reputation. And if you're an asshole and complain and are problematic, you're never going to get hired again. No matter how good your portfolio is, somebody's going to find out, because what usually happens is you work with somebody, and I call up my friend, and I go, who have you seen, or who should I be looking for? I'm looking for X, and they will tell me based off of the reputation of the people they've worked with. So reputation is everything in this industry. So you have to be 100% professional, work at 150% when you're doing any job. And you're being hired to make something happen. Yes, you can have your opinions, but you got to know when to shut up and do what they say, and take it with a grain of salt, because you're helping and they're paying you, and that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. Danny Pedro, how do you decide when to move the camera and when not to? Great question. And is there such a thing as moving the camera too much? Yes, there is such a thing as moving the camera too much. As soon as you lose the audience, that connection, you're done. There's a lot of people, filmmakers right now, who just freaking shake the camera and you're going, I have no idea what's going on. So therefore, I'm going to sit out and wait until it stops. So everything has to be motivated by the character. If the character's moving, the camera can be moving. Number one, because the character moving is taking you from one thing to another. And so you get to see their journey, and you get to travel with them and see that change of mood or tone or action in the move. You move the camera off a look when they're realizing something, and you reveal stuff. You move the camera if you are a presence or want to create a sense of foreboding or speed or motion or energy. All these things are basically essentially a way of saying you can move the camera whenever you want, as long as it supports the story or you're emphasizing something in the story. I started on Brave moving the camera after the title. I'm just over the water, and I lift up to see the Highlands. And I was doing that because I am transporting you from your seat and whatever you came from in your life to a movie. And so to start on something ambiguous and then translate you to and hand you over to another place, another world, was a reason why I moved the camera there. All right, William Chung, if you have different ideas about how the camera angle should be, you do explore as many ideas on paper, or for the sake of time, decisively choose one. Yeah, that's a great question. It depends on how much time I have. And I will think I know, and I will do it. I will try 3, 4, or 5. I'll turn stuff quickly. I usually abandon a drawing quickly because I can see it's not going anywhere once I get elements in there. You guys may have seen some of that transpire. There's a, so I abandoned the thing quickly, or I'll nail something and I'll come back to it later and kick it off and say, no, that actually wasn't the way to go. And I'll try and reconceive it. So it all depends on time. And I only have 10 minutes left. And when did Jamie say that? Too bad there's no time card on there. So I'll get through at least a few more. So Tyree Jones, are you going to teach a class online? Maybe. I don't know. How do I do that? Okay, Benjamin Dye. Hi, Mike. You were in my story teacher account. I remember you, Ben Dye. How can I forget you, Ben Dye? The best anime speedy lines in the business. How do you keep coming up with new and fresh ideas for action sequences? That's a great question, Ben Dye, and it's really freaking challenging. And you know what? I do all the old ones that I did in the past, and then I get mad at myself and I try new things. I just try to get into the moment. And what are the moments and the beats in the story element that I can show so that the audience understands what's going on? And it's really picking those points of emphasis and a progression in a sequence. And it's going to be a construct that's very different than any other action sequence that I did. Again, it's like comedy. Comedy's many different types of comedy out there, but they all have the same thing. It's a buildup and then the punch, always. And you don't know which way the punch is coming, but you understand that there's going to be a punch. So you're predicting where it's going to be. It's the same thing in an action sequence. We have to understand what's going on for there to be those surprises, those reveals, those moments where we get hit from the left. And for sure, I thought it was coming from the right. We have to mislead. And to mislead, you spell it out for an audience that we're going this way, and then you could change course. So it's really getting in and breaking down that sequence. And usually more than once, man, doing it a couple of times to really finding out what it should be in and of itself. Okay, Carl Riza, dear Mark, I'm a recent storyboard graduate, but I'm at a loss of how frequently to practice storyboarding. Do you think I should be making a board a week or something like that? If so, how long should these practice boards be? Every day, man. You should be drawing every day. There's a story in a single image. So you can do 10 single images that tell a story. You can do the next 5. Find a storytelling image, do the next 5. Take a week to do just a sequence based off a newspaper report, a story that you heard. You want to explore something with the chupacabra or Bigfoot. You know, you find an image of an RV, whatever. Find whatever prompts, but it should be every day. When I was, and I still not as much, but I used to do this all the time. I'd be drawing 8 hours a day at work, and then I would come home and I'd draw another 8 hours. When I was at CalArts, I was doing that. I would be working on my film for 8 hours. I'd get back to my dorm at night, 1 or 2 in the morning. I draw till 6 and I go to sleep and then wake up at 9 and go back to all my classes and be drawing again. So you have to constantly, you cannot practice enough, man. All right. Jesse, you're welcome. Rata Clay, Mark, sorry, second question. No worries. I've been working as a film and camera assistant for the past 5 years. Awesome. But I haven't gotten my foundation in animation and really want to get back into storyboarding. Cool. Do you have any advice for me to navigate my way back into storyboarding as someone who has experience in film now? Yeah, you have a lot of experience. I mean, you've been seeing how things are set up and how shots are constructed and how they turn out once they get into editorial. I think that's all invaluable knowledge to come by and think kind of the same way as you're doing your storyboards. I've had editors who've turned into storyboard artists. I've had animators who've turned into storyboard artists. So storyboard artists can come from anywhere, and especially camera, because you've been there and seeing how it happens, lining up shots and lens use and what the effect on that lens is on the story. So you've been right there front and center. So, I would throw off all the technical aspects of the camera, and now you could just concentrate on the visual storytelling. Yeah, and do it and practice and try little things at first. Don't get ambitious. Little things at first, and then you build up that. It's like weightlifting or running a marathon. You start out a little bit at a time, and you build up your tolerance to how much you can do. You'll do great. Okay, 2 more. Benito Longoria, do you have an interest in storyboarding VR? Sure. What do you think might be easily transferred from storyboarding to a medium? And how things might fit differently? Well, here's the thing on VR. VR is not film. VR is not a screen. And so real life, how do we react in real life? What captures our attention in real life? What do we react to in real life? Why do I turn my head and look at some noises and not at other noises? The visual and audio clues in real life are so complex. It does not, the way that over the last 100 years, as film has been designed for one ratio, is completely different than VR. So everybody working in VR needs to absolutely abandon all the stuff that they learned or they're trying to copy and emulate from motion pictures and movies. And they need to start studying real life, actually looking at real life and watching people and seeing why they react to the things they react. And only then will they get the visual tools and clues to actually make VR really incredible. All right. Niccolo Polverilli. Sorry, man. I tried. Hi, Mark. Do you think the narrative of structure of a film will change in the next few years? No. It hasn't changed in 100 years. It hasn't changed in 100,000 years. Story is story, beginning, middle, and end on the basic side of it. What we have a tolerance for, our visual acuity is getting so much faster. Our attention spans are shrinking. Thank you, music videos and everything else, and Quibi and YouTube. We're getting more and more impatient. So we're losing some things too, as we're evolving. But it's always evolving in different ways. But the core essential of what makes us feel and what makes us react to stuff is going to be around the same forever. And the visual components of visual storytelling for a locked-in screen is always going to be the same. Red is going to get the same response out of us psychologically, as well as physiologically, the same as shapes are affecting us what we see. So, because that's never going to change, structure film's never going to change. In that sense. And last one, I will do Kevin Lamb just because it's in order. Boy, look how many. Holy crap. Sorry I didn't get to everybody. Wow, there's like 1,000. Shit, I need to talk faster. Kevin Lamb, what was the most challenging sequence you boarded and why? Ratatouille, because I hated it. That was the most challenging sequence. The stuff in the kitchen. The kind of final battle thing in the kitchen of there's lots of moving parts and we were tying up loose ends and lots of spinning plates. That was the most challenging. I think the other most challenging one was on Iron Giant, the final battle of Iron Giant, because Brad in the script just said the biggest, most expensive, awesomest action adventure sequence ever seen in animation history. That was what I got. So I had my Jane's Encyclopedia of the Military, which is this thick. And I started at page 1, artillery, and I made a moment out of artillery, and I went all through U-boats, and I did torpedoes off of attack boats, and I brought in a B-2 bomber. I got F-86 Sabres. I did grenades and bazookas and machine guns, and so I put everything in, and it was a huge, huge, huge sequence. Because Brad didn't know exactly what it should be. And then we just kept honing it down and honing it down. So that was weeks of drawing and mutilating those drawings and tossing stuff out and boiling stuff down. That was a very challenging sequence. I think the other challenging sequences are the ones where I did not agree with the director at all on how it should be seen. And those are really hard to just buckle down and deliver what they needed to see to make their decisions and react. And those are always, always, always challenging. So thanks, everybody. That was my final question. I got to hit done now. I wish I could have answered all your questions. But yeah, if you catch me on the street or whatnot, I'm happy to answer your questions. They're all great questions. I hope you guys learned a lot, and as information you can take with you as you're doing storyboards, or you're getting into storyboards, you're just starting to do storyboards, or you've been doing storyboards forever, and it's just good to get hear somebody's been doing them forever too, say the same things that you've been practicing already as confirmation. So be safe out there, everybody. Wear your mask. It's important. And we'll see you next time and on the flip side. Bye, everybody. What do I do now? Jamie?